This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Utopia of Usurers by G.K. Chesterton. Section 3. 6. Science and the Eugenists. The key fact in the new development of plutocracy is that it will use its own blunder as an excuse for further crimes. Everywhere the very completeness of the impoverishment will be made a reason for the enslavement, though the men who impoverished were the same who enslaved. It is as if a highwayman not only took away a gentleman's horse and all his money, but then handed him over to the police for tramping without visible means of subsistence. And the most monstrous feature in this enormous meanness may be noted in the plutocratic appeal to science, or rather to the pseudo-science that they call eugenics. The eugenists get the ear of the humane, but rather hazy cliques, by saying that the present conditions under which people work and breed are bad for the race, but the modern mind will not generally stretch beyond one step of reasoning, and the consequence which appears to follow on the consideration of these conditions is by no means what would originally have been expected. If somebody says a rickety cradle may mean a rickety baby, the natural deduction, one would think, would be to give the people a good cradle, or give them money enough to buy one. But that means higher wages and greater equalization of wealth, and the plutocratic scientist, with a slightly troubled expression, turns his eyes and pince-nez in another direction. Reduced to brutal terms of truth, his difficulty is this, and simply this: more food, leisure, and money for the workman would mean a better workman, better even from the point of view of any one for whom he worked. But more food, leisure, and money would also mean a more independent workman. A house with a decent fire and a full pantry would be a better house to make a chair or mend a clock in, even from the customer's point of view, than a hovel with a leaky roof and a cold hearth. But a house with a decent fire and a full pantry would also be a better house in which to refuse to make a chair or mend a clock, a much better house to do nothing in, and doing nothing is sometimes one of the highest of the duties of man. All but the hard-hearted must be torn with pity for this pathetic dilemma of the rich man, who has to keep the poor man just stout enough to do the work, just thin enough to have to do it. As he stood gazing at the leaky roof and the rickety cradle in a pensive manner, there one day came into his mind a new and curious idea, one of the most strange, simple, and horrible ideas that have ever risen from the deep pit of original sin. The roof could not be mended, or at least it could not be mended much, without upsetting the capitalist balance, or rather disproportion in society, for a man with a roof is a man with a house, and to that extent his house is his castle. The cradle could not be made to rock easier, or at least not much easier, without strengthening the hands of the poor household, for the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, to that extent. But it occurred to the capitalist that there was one sort of furniture in the house that could be altered. The husband and wife could be altered.